All right, all set.
Are we live?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I was going to say good evening because it's the evening in Northern Ireland, but it's probably midday or whatever day time it is for yourselves. I'm delighted to introduce you today to our Centre for Behaviour Analysis webinars. And our speaker is Dr. Justin Leaf, who is probably well known to some of you already, and I'm delighted to have him here today. Dr. Leaf is the co-director of research and the director for training for the Autism Partnership Foundation and professor at Endicott College. He received his doctorate degree in behavioral psychology from the Department of Applied Behavioral Sciences at the University of Kansas, and currently he leads a research team at the Autism Partnership Foundation, which conducts research nationally and internationally. His research interests include examining methods to improve social behaviors for children and adolescents with autism and develop friendships, and comparing different teaching methodologies, evaluating parameters of reinforcement, and evaluating long-term outcomes for individuals diagnosed with autism. Justin has over 100 publications in either peer-reviewed journals, books, or book chapters, and has presented at both national and international professional conferences and invited events, and you maybe have already come across his work in those. Justin also recently edited a book entitled Handbook for Social Skills and Autism Spectrum Disorders, and he has co-authored two other books entitled Clinical Judgement and the Autism Partnership Method Social Skills Group. He is also an associate editor for the Review Journal in Autism and Developmental Disorders, and he has served as on the editorial board for JABA and some other journals as well. So it is an absolute pleasure and privilege to have Justin deliver the webinar here at the Centre for Behaviour Analysis at Queen's here at Behaviour Live. And as participants, please note that the CEUs check-ins during the talk, you need to click attendance to make sure that you get your CEUs at the end. The webinar will be recorded and will be available after the talk. So Justin, over to you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I think the privilege and honor is all mine. I'm so grateful for the invitation, and I hope that everyone here takes away some of the points that I make today. Now, I'm going to share my screen and hope my technology works. So what I'm going to be talking about today is what we've coined and talked about as progressive ABA. And I'm going to go over some of our research and clinical practice. But before I really start going over the parameters of progressive ABA, I want to talk about the why and why we call it progressive ABA. And it really starts with this paper that my colleagues and I published in the Journal of Autism, Applied Behavior Analysis as Science and Therefore Progressive. And this paper came about from me giving a presentation somewhat similar to this, but obviously it's changed over time, where I went to a major Ivy League university and was presenting on ABA at their monthly kind of seminar. And when I was going to present there, I met the leader of that university, and he told me that they don't really like ABA out here, that ABA is not their thing. And obviously this frightened me a little bit because I knew I was giving a 2-hour presentation on applied behavior analysis and didn't know what kind of audience I'd be getting. And I gave my talk, and at the end, the professor said, well, this is ABA we love. You should write a paper. And so we wrote this paper, as I said, Applied Behavior Analysis as Science and Therefore Progressive. I really want to talk about it as quality versus not quality ABA, but that didn't fly with the journal. So that's really how the name progressive came, because we should always be looking to improve upon ourselves, improve upon our science, improve upon our clinical work. It's also important as behavior analysts to know that there is a range of behavioral intervention that's being applied today to individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and their families. And so, although I believe all ABA should be progressive, and I hope many of you in the audience believe all ABA should be progressive, the reality from what I see in clinics, in schools, in homes, across the United States and internationally is that there's a wide range of what's actually being applied today. On one end of the continuum, we're seeing really rigid adherence to protocols. You get your technician there, they have a data sheet, they have the exact instruction that should be said, they have the exact prompt that should be given, the exact reinforcer that should be provided, and it's pretty much scripted throughout the day. Almost like a robot could do it because it is just absolutely programmed to a T. And I see this in many places that I've visited. On the other end of the spectrum, in terms of the range of ABA, I see really lackadaisical behavioral intervention being implemented. A lot of times you'll see they'll have a token economy, but it's unclear what behaviors a child is receiving the token for. It's unclear when the cash-in is. They might have a behavior thermometer, but it's a complete punishment-based procedure where they're just moving down the thermometer into red. And so I see that as well. And for me, progressive ABA is in the middle, and you'll see how it's in the middle. It's not that we're rigidly adhering to protocols, but it's not that we are, lackadaisical in our approach. It's really combining an art and science of what we do. It is also important to know why we call progressive ABA that there's rigid, and then unfortunately there's really bad behavioral intervention being implemented. I'm not comfortable calling it behavioral intervention, by the way, but it is what is being associated with behavioral intervention. And so here's some of the hallmarks of what we're seeing. We're focusing on irrelevant curriculum at irrelevant ages. So maybe shapes, colors, numbers, where it's not the most important goal for a child, an individual. Or I've seen places where they're using only food reinforcers. They're cutting those M&Ms into like quarter-size pieces, and they're using food reinforcers. To me, this is a hallmark of bad ABA. Or I see working in a therapy room, a white-walled room. Now you see I'm not in a white-walled room. I'm in what's my son's former bedroom. But in a room where it's just white walls and cubicles, it's not very natural. It's not warm. It's not inviting. And we see this in so many places. We see where parents are not being promoted as being experts of their own child. Not experts in applied behavior analysis, but they're experts on their child, and that we're including them in parent education and parent training. I see all too often behavior analysts endorsing alternative treatments, endorsing things like social thinking, social stories, floor time, RDI, and that we're okay with that. Staff are not properly trained. And as if you've heard me speak anywhere, if you've read any of my work, I'm very concerned that staff are now being trained based on the clock, based on a 40-hour training, and not based on performance of when they're actually able to implement the various procedures or interventions. And then obviously not the proper doses of treatment intensity that in the United States, insurance companies are dictating how many hours a week individuals should get, or that we're saying everyone should get 40 hours regardless, or everyone should get 4 hours regardless. These are the signs I'm seeing, and I'm not comfortable calling it ABA at the end of the day, but the reality is our consumers believe that this is ABA, and the reality is behavior analysts are selling this as progressive or as ABA. And that's why I really am trying to differentiate quality versus this kind of intervention, which I believe produces bad outcomes. Now, what we've done, and it's not trying to sell a package, is we believe we have to raise the standards of intervention. We have to raise the minimum standards. So my colleagues and I have created the Certified Progressive Behavior Analyst, Autism Professional, to help raise those standards so that you're not just rigidly adhering to protocols and you're not meeting the minimum standards, and we have to increase those standards. And when we did this, what I found in social media was we were getting a lot of questions. Well, what is that? What is progressive ABA? Why should we talk about progressive ABA? How is that different? And I guess I lived in a bubble for too long where I thought everyone knew what progressive ABA was because I was publishing on it and I was talking at conferences of it. And so I found a mission that I have to do better of actually explaining it to people and explaining what is progressive ABA. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through some of the current dimensions of progressive ABA. Now, many of you will probably say, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Why am I even giving this talk? It's so basic. But once again, I'm in the reality of what I see is it's not what's occurring in everyday practice. So if you're one of the people doing this, I applaud you. I'm very happy that you're doing it. But at the same time, we need to do a better job of sharing this with our colleagues, of educating our consumers that this is what ABA is about. And so I'm going to start with the first dimension, and that is client-centered. Here's a picture of my two boys, and if we were live, I'd be waiting for the, "Aw, they're so cute," or asking you why you're not saying, "Aw, they're so cute." But here are my two boys. And if one thing that happened in COVID that I really realized is what I care about for my children. Obviously, I care that they're safe and healthy. That was the very first thing I cared about. It was every decision I made from February 2020 all the way to now. It's like, is this safe for them? Are they going to get sick from the decisions we're making? But the other thing that really came to light was their happiness, their joy. What was going to make them happy now, but what was not only now, but what was going to make them happy 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when they are adults. And for me, whenever I work with a client, I take the same mentality. I'm looking at the individual I'm working with, and I'm envisioning, and I know this is mentalistic, but I'm envisioning if they were my child, what would I want? What would I want for them? And it always comes down to how can I make them happy, productive, having a meaningful life, something that they enjoy. And too often I see that this is not the case. We are just going into curriculum without really looking at the long-term benefits of the individuals that we're working with. So that's the first tenet of progressive ABA. The second tenet is I'm a big believer in social validity. As Corolla said, I'm from the University of Kansas. That's where I got my PhD. My idol is Mont Wolf. Mont Wolf is one of my idols in the field. I love his work. I try to educate myself as much on him as possible. And for those of you who haven't read this article, please read this. More important than any article of mine, read the social validity article. And so now I have to switch because I'm going to show a video. I'm sorry for like the multi-screens. And so I am a huge believer in social validity. I think social validity is critical. And I don't believe this is anything new. What I'm seeing out there is some behavior analysts, young behavior analysts saying like they've discovered social validity. I want to show you a video now of one of my first clients back 20 years ago when I was just starting. And he was a client. This is 5 years after I worked with him. And his sister was taking a video for her college presentation on her brother. And so I hope this works, but I want you to see this video.
Every once in a while I go and upset. He used to have helpers at school, but he doesn't have helpers at school anymore.
What grade are you in, Sean?
8th grade. I choose to work on my goals. Like she lets me choose.
Right. So you agree that this was a good goal?
Yeah, so I decided like, do you have any other work on this and stuff like that?
So the point of that is he was choosing to work on his goals. And I am a big believer that children have opportunities to choose to work on their goals. And so we should be including parents. We should be including children in part of the goal selection process. But what I'm concerned about, what I'm seeing today, especially in the anti-ABA rings that I see in the United States, and I also see in the UK when I've been there, and I've seen in Asia or different countries in Asia as well, is that we're going to the extreme. We are telling parents or behavior analysts that children should always be responsible for their goals. And so they can elect out of certain goals or say that's not important. I've heard in different talks that if a child does not want to go to the bathroom or be toilet trained, that it's okay that they just go to the bathroom or defecate on the floor. And for me, this is not okay. Children at certain ages can't make informed decisions. They can't think of the long-term ramifications. And it's our job as helping professionals to really guide them through this process. And so for me, I believe social validity is important, but I also believe it's important for us as the helping professionals to really understand when we have to make decisions and help inform parents and children of what the best potential solutions, treatments are. Let me reshare my screen. Sorry, just give me a second.
Hey, Justin, sorry to interrupt real quick. Whenever you share a video again, mute your mic because
I'll mute it for sure.
Cool.
The other thing is I believe that we do a good job of social validity, and progressive ABA does a good job of social validity. The reality, at least in the journal articles that we see published in our flagship journal, shows that we're not that good on social validity, that only 12% of articles actually evaluate social validity. This is something that we have to improve on. We absolutely have to improve on making sure that our whole field is valuing our dedication to our heart to social validity. So these are the first two tenets, and now I'm going to get more into the meat of what I want to talk about. The third one, and what differs us from many interventions, behavioral interventions I see, is clinical judgment. In a progressive approach to ABA, a therapist, a direct line therapist, and a supervisor uses clinical judgment. And if you're like, clinical judgment, he's a behavior analyst, how could he be saying this? I want to assure you that clinical judgment is not a dirty word. It is not something we should be afraid of or talk about. We're behavior analysts, and we should be able to use words like this. I believe clinical judgment is used every day. We use clinical judgment every day, whether that's playing sports and you have to decide different factors. When I cook, and you have to decide based on the humidity, based on the taste, and you have to add or take away spices. My favorite hobby is always drinking wine. And so I love watching winemakers and the decisions they make in making their wine. I don't know how the traffic is in Ireland. Here in Los Angeles, it is horrible. And I use clinical judgment almost every day on what freeways I am taking or not taking. And in general psychology, clinical judgment's used. I believe behavior analysts have to do a better job of clinical judgment. And I'm encouraged by seeing some talking about it now. But once again, it's nothing new in our field. A handbook created in 1970s on behavior modification, the UCLA Young Autism Project, talked about flexibility throughout the manuscript, throughout this handbook, that we have to be flexible. We have to be flexible on our goals. We have to be flexible in how we implement our procedures. We have to get back to clinical judgment. And so what we've tried to do here is operationally define, or start to operationally define, what is clinical judgment? What do we mean by clinical judgment? And here are some of the factors that we look at. For one, we're looking at interfering behaviors all the time and doing in the moment functional analysis. Do I believe functional behavior assessment and functional analysis ahead of time is important? Absolutely. But our staff need to know why behavior is occurring at this moment, and knowing a functional analysis that occurred 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 2 weeks ago might be different than why a child's engaging in aberrant behavior currently. And so we have to be able to determine the function on the spot. We have to look at our child if they are attentive and receptive to learning. I think about my 7-year-old who you saw, he had the butterfly in his hand. I am pushing baseball like nothing else right now with him because he wants to play baseball and I want him to play baseball, and it's important to us. And there are times I know when I pick him up from school, I can push him harder to do more drills, to get more pitching done. I also know times where he's exhausted and it's like, okay, I'm not going to throw to him. I'm not going to play catch with him. We're just going to go watch baseball on the TV. We have to look at receptivity. We also are big on data. And for our staff, our supervisors, they need to know about past performance, but they need to know how the child is responding currently. That is critical. Looking at motivation and constantly looking at motivation. Looking at the child's health, not just their physical health, but their emotional health. Knowing what's going on in their lives, knowing if there's a major life event, a divorce, someone died, someone is no longer there. We have kids who are deployed, whose parents are deployed for military purposes, and realizing that what's going on there is going to affect how the child's doing. And then lastly for me is staff skill. We know that more novel staff, it's going to have to be more protocol driven. But over time, we need to shape that so that they can get more and more access to using clinical judgment and not having to rely on the protocol. So clinical judgment is essential for us. And when we have clinical judgment, we are able to use flexible procedures. And the procedures I'm going to talk about today are very different than what I see out there in the name of behavior intervention. It's how I see it different. Now, I know some of you might be doing this, and I applaud you, and I'm so grateful that you're implementing quality ABA. Others, if you're not doing this, I hope that you'll take some of this and incorporate it into your work. But at the end of the day, I hope everyone spreads the message of what I'm talking about. And so the first flexible procedure I want to talk about is something called in-the-moment reinforcer analysis. If you don't believe this is a real procedure, it's in the Cooper, Hare, and Hewer book. So we made it to the white book, which is we're grateful for. IMRA has no formal preference assessment ahead of time. We're not doing a paired stimulus preference assessment. We're not doing an MSW or MSWO. Rather, the behavior analyst, and I mean this from a technician all the way to a BCBA or a behavior analyst who's not certified, makes in-the-moment decisions about what could function as a reinforcer. So we're not doing anything prior to, we're making decisions in the moment. And these decisions are based on multiple factors. As we talked about before, the verbal and nonverbal behavior of our students. If a student says, I don't like this toy or I don't like this item, we should listen and move on. Or if they look happy with an item, maybe that's something we should use. We want to look at how often we're giving the item. So we train our staff not to give the same item throughout the day so satiation doesn't occur. And ultimately, we want to look at our staff's ability to condition components of the items that we're using. And I'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Ultimately, our staff look at data to reevaluate what stimuli to use and what stimuli not to use. So instead of using paired stimulus preference assessment, we don't do it. We just constantly evaluate during teaching. And so we've done studies. I'm going to take a very Pat Fryman approach based on time. I'm just going to say we've done studies. I will more than gladly share these studies with anybody. But essentially in the studies, what we did is we're comparing IMRA to formal preference assessments. So in this study, we compared IMRA to paired stimulus preference assessments. I have data, you can see that. And what we found was there's no difference in a sorting task and rates of sorting or amounts of chips sorted between IMRA and preference assessments. We replicated it to do IMRA versus paired stimulus preference assessments on an expressive label task, naming cartoon characters, and really found no difference in terms of children's correct responding. And then we switched gears a little bit and did IMRA compared to multiple stimulus preference with younger, more novel staff, once again on chip sorting behavior, and found no difference. And so there's no real difference of doing paired stimulus preference assessments or MSWOs versus doing it in the moment. You're getting the same kind of average rate of responding or correct responding. But there is one key difference. And the big difference is in time. And so in our studies, the average preference assessment was 21 minutes. Now, there are some behavior analysts who do paired stimulus preference assessments once a week, and I've seen this in different facilities. Well, that would mean every week they're spending 21 minutes on it. If they had a 48-week work year, that's 1,008 minutes, or 2 full days of intervention on nothing but determining what could be used as a reinforcer. This would cost, if you're looking at a $72 US dollar rate, of $1,152. There's places I've been, and the research has reported there's behavior analysts who do paired stimulus preference assessments or MSWOs once a day. Well, that would be 105 minutes a week, 5,040 minutes a year, or 10 and a half full days of intervention on nothing but determining a potential reinforcer at a cost of over $6,000. And I know there's places in the world where insurance isn't covering this. So if we value time and the need to maximize teaching, one thing in a progressive approach is minimizing these procedures that could result in wasted time. I'm also comfortable saying that because we know through the research that we can condition items to be reinforcing that we're not necessarily reinforcing at first. We've done a series of studies where we've taken the least preferred item and have made it more preferred than the most preferred item. We're able to condition reinforcers. And so I'm going to stop sharing again. I'm going to mute in a second. I'm going to show a video of this. And in this, it's what I call the cone video. We have a new staff. This is part of training. And she is supposed to get the child to like an orange cone over Bruce the shark from Finding Nemo. And Bruce the shark was not only preferred, it was the kid's obsession. And so you're going to be able to see how she went about conditioning the orange cone.
Nice job. You can look at this for a minute, okay? Good, Noah. You are answering so cool. Do you want to play with the shark or the cone? Cool, let's play with it. Do you want me to hold it or do you want to hold it? Yeah, go for it. Oh dear. Oh no. Okay. You got me. Wow, you're answering so cool. Dun, 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 yeah, go for it. Noah is a rock star. Oh, I have a good idea. Let's set these up. Like this. Stand up. Okay. Quick. And we're gonna make an obstacle course. Ready? So, we'll run. Okay, we crashed. Oh no. Ready? Go. Oh, you want to kick him? You can kick him. Ready? Go. Good job. Give me 10. Cool, Noah. Okay, have a seat. Okay. Duck. Yeah, the duck is. Nice job, Noah. You're sitting so cool. Hey, Noah, do you want to play with the cones or the shark? The shark. I want this one with the holes in it. I want this one. Ooh, this is my sword. I'm my Watch out! Oh dear! You got me! Oh, I knocked yours off! Oh, did I almost get you? Now it's my hat. Oh, it's my hat. I'm gonna be. Oh dear! Oh no. It's a fishy fish! Are you ready to catch it? Here I go. Woohoo! Nice throw, or nice catch. Oh, almost. A bear, you got it. Nice job. Do you want to check out the cones or the shark? Cone. Okay, cool. Ooh, what should we do with them this time? How about Nemo? Oh, Nemo again. Okay. Oh, you want to put them on your feet this time? Yes. That's pretty silly. I'll put one on this one.
You're muted, Justin.
Chris, you would think after 2 years I would get this. I was saying Annie's working so hard on this, on conditioning these items, making the activity fun so that we can expand reinforcers, so we can expand our repertoire, so we can get into better teaching. And so for me, within this approach, we really want to concentrate on conditioning reinforcers rather than just identifying what reinforcers are through formal preference assessments. Now, a procedure that we use is discrete trial teaching, and it saddens me to see the perception of discrete trial teaching. I think the perception is that discrete trial teaching is for only those kids who are more impacted or for only younger kids. And at the end of the day, I do believe discrete trial teaching is at the heart of a lot of the teaching that we see. I also am saddened to see that there's so many best practice recommendations or rules that you have to do when implementing discrete trial instruction. And so my colleagues and I wrote this paper, A Progressive Approach to Discrete Trial Teaching, some current guidelines, because we want to give guidelines of how to do it and understanding that when you're implementing discrete trial teaching, it should not be this is always the way to do it. It should be under what conditions do we implement certain components. And once again, I believe behavior analysis, ABA, is always about under what conditions, but unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing out there. It's just not what we're seeing in so many places throughout the world. So I'm going to just go quickly and show you some of the areas of research we're doing. It's only an hour presentation. I could probably spend 6 hours on this. Maybe Corolla will invite me back to go into more detail of any component of this. I'll be glad to do so if anything is interesting to everybody. One area that we've gotten into was we've heard that you have to do counterbalancing on receptive label task or matching, meaning when you put down the cards, you have to make sure that they're equivalent on the left side, middle, and right side, and so that you're having this perfect rotation. And this has become a best practice recommendation that we're seeing a lot, at least here I'm seeing a lot in the United States. And so if you have 9 trials, there's 3 trials of the target behavior on the left side, 3 in the center, and 3 on the right. And we were curious, not judgmental, but curious about what was happening. So we did a study where we compared that counterbalancing method to a method where we just put the cards wherever they lie, that's where they're going to be the whole time, versus clinical judgment. And our first study found idiosyncratic differences, that this really depends on the learner and depends on the set. So we were seeing differences for each of our learners. A master's student of mine, Elizabeth Wong, expanded on this and then did on the order of presentation. So if you're teaching like dog, cat, airplane, I don't know why you would teach those, but those are just easy to say. Dog, cat, airplane. That in some places we're saying it's prescribed when you're saying find the dog, find the airplane, find the cat. And so we wanted to do a prescribed counterbalance method versus a non-prescribed counterbalance method. And in this study, we did find that the clinical judgment resulted in much better skill acquisition of the labels. And so I bring this up because I'm not saying that counterbalancing is wrong. I'm not saying that clinical judgment is always right. It goes back to under what conditions. And so when we're thinking about stimulus placement in teaching, we should not just be following an article blindly. We need to look at what's best for the learner in the moment. A big area of research, it's actually the area of research I wanted to do my whole career, but then I got sidetracked with more important things, and quite honestly, is prompting. Our prompting method is what we call flexible prompt fading. We don't really prescribe to most to least or least to most or constant time delay or progressive time delay or graduated guidance or simultaneous prompt or no prompt or errorless learning, which I never know what that means because everyone has a different definition. We don't do that. We do something different. We have no set protocol in terms of our prompting methodology. So there's no set protocol of when to prompt, when to fade prompts, or what prompt types to use. Rather, an interventionist can use all different prompting systems and all different prompt types dependent upon what is best for that learner in that situation. Now, the goal that we teach our therapists to do is to keep students at 80% accuracy, 80% correct, prompted or unprompted within a session. we want a high rate of reinforcement to occur. And what we're training our staff to do is ask, a staff in every trial should be asking themselves, is the student going to get the next trial correct? So if I'm supervising someone, I'm going to say to them, Misty, is the student going to get the next trial correct? And Misty better have an answer, yes or no. And when Misty provides the answer, I'm going to say, why do you believe that's the case? And so I'm looking for the therapist to analyze their rationale of why they are going to get it correct or not. Now, if they are going to get it correct, then we should not provide a prompt. If they're not going to get it correct, the second question I'm going to say is, how important is it that they respond correctly on the next trial? And there's times that it is important that they respond correctly. There's times that it's not important that they're going to respond correctly. And this is really based upon if we think they can learn from corrective feedback. If the therapist has a good rationale of that they need to respond correctly, then they have to determine what's the most effective but least assistive prompt that they can be used. And so we really want to ensure that they're not over prompting. And so as you can see, versus most to least method, where it's prescribed of when you're providing prompts and when you're fading prompts, this one is every trial that therapist is thinking of what they should be doing, if they should be prompting or not prompting, and what prompt type to use and what prompt type not to use. Now, of course, we have data. One of my favorite studies is from my colleague Joe Sheehan, a brilliant behavior analyst. And he compared 3 flexible prompt fading to most to least to constant time delay. And we found differences in that flexible prompt fading was a better prompting system for the 9 participants where we had in the study. I'm going to switch gears and talk about the last part of discrete trial teaching. We're big proponents of corrective feedback. This does not mean harsh 1970s feedback where you're yelling no at a child. But if a child gets it wrong, if a child says, you ask them what's 2 + 2 and they say 7, that's not it, buddy. Try again. We believe that corrective feedback is essential for learning. And so we've done a variety of studies comparing error correction, providing corrective feedback, to what we called errorless learning, really a most to least prompting system, and found that error correction was statistically significantly better in children learning labels, and counterintuitive to most people, that errorless learning actually resulted in more aberrant behavior than the error correction procedure. And this is one study. There's been other studies that have shown error correction procedures to be just as effective as other prompting procedures. And we've done descriptive analyses to really show that when children get corrective feedback, that they're not having aberrant behavior outbursts. They're not hitting, kicking, screaming. And if they do, that's a perfect opportunity to teach frustration tolerance. So we are big believers in discrete trial teaching. The other thing that we are big believers in is there's other kinds of instruction out there. I'm going to show you a video of something we call the cool versus not cool procedure. This is created here. It was created in 1995 in California. And the language is because that's how the kids were talking. They were saying cool or not cool. It does not have to just be cool or not cool. Use language depending where you are. But at the end of the day, it's a discrimination program between what behaviors are appropriate and what behaviors are inappropriate, without judgment, really, of like, if you do this, like the worst thing in the world is going to happen to you. So I'm going to show you another video of the cool versus not cool procedure.
Action! Action! Everyone go to sleep. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ah. Meow, meow. Woof, 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 woof. Okay, time out. What do you guys think? Was Jeremy doing it the cool way or the not cool way?
Cool way.
Yeah, why was it cool, Aiden?
Because he got
Yeah, you got up fast when you heard the doggy sound. Okay, ready, set,
Action.
action. Everyone go to sleep. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Freeze. What do you guys think right now? Is Jeremy being cool enough?
I remembered the mic this time, so I'm a one trial learner. That's good for me. So this one is just discriminating, like when you're playing this game, the sleeping game, that the kids aren't rolling all over on top of each other. They're waiting to hear the sound before they have to engage in the conditional instruction. And so cool versus not cool, the teaching interaction procedure, which is where behavioral skills training really came from, or social skills groups, that can all be done using clinical judgment and should be done using clinical judgment. I'm going to shift to the fifth area, which I think is critical for quality ABA, progressive ABA, and that therapy should be fun work. Now, for me, there's times intervention is intervention. It's not always fun for the kid, and that's okay. There's times when my kids, my 7-year-old and 5-year-old, go to school, and it's not always fun what they have to do. I'm every night after baseball, which I guess shows the mixed up priorities in my family, we do homework. Usually it's homework and then baseball, but for me it's baseball, then homework. And there's times my kids don't like it, but they have to do it because they have to learn their math facts, or they have to learn reading, or have to learn writing. There's other times where they really like the homework and it's fun work. Unfortunately, as a field, we have a bad reputation that we're rigid, we're cold, we're not fun. And I think that's why people, consumers, go to other interventions. Our goal should be making therapy fun and natural as possible. There's ways to do this. We should use enthusiastic tones. We should not be sounding just like monotone throughout every session. We should be doing intervention in a variety of settings and with a variety of instructions. We should be mixing up schedules. I hate going to clinics or home programs or schools where I'm saying it's the same schedule every day. Mix it up. Have some spice in that schedule, and that will keep the child, the learner, engaged. Obviously, using interesting, preferred, and functional materials. Not boring the learner by continuing to implement a program that's already mastered. And one problem I see today, at least in the United States, is too often the RBT has to wait for their supervisor to come out before moving to the next target, to the next program. So now a child has to sit there for a week or 2 weeks learning the same target that they already know. They're bored as can be, and of course they're going to start engaging in aberrant behavior. Another thing for me is not punishing the learner when they're attending or when they're trying hard because they got something incorrect. If a learner is really trying really hard, we should not be punishing them for it by having them continue with the instruction. We should be having breaks and moving to reinforcement. A high success rate, which I've already talked about, is important. Using a child's preferences as reinforcers is critical. I've been in schools where the teacher loves Skittles, and that's the only reinforcers they're using, besides the problem of food reinforcers only. They're only using Skittles, and the kids are like, I hate Skittles, and the Skittles are still being given. It's just like, of course it is. Obviously, you want to intersperse tasks, use a variety of reinforcers. Your language should be as natural as possible. For me, the way I talk to my learners is the same way I would talk to any one of you, is just natural as possible. So I'm not minimizing words. I'm not saying like ball when I want them to find a ball, or touch ball. I'll say like find the ball, and making sure I have the word the in there, because the word the in that sentence, because it's natural. You want a variety of curriculum. I want to reduce my structure as much as possible. And for me, play and social programs need to be in there. It's so important that we work on play and social skills, social behavior, alongside language and academic programs. And finally, to make therapy fun and natural, staff have to be trained. They have to be trained based upon their performance. And so I'm going to show you more videos. I hope you like the videos. It's probably better than me talking of that. Of some of the fun activities you'll see in a progressive model in our session. And the first one is what we called the boogie walk, part of a social skills group that we conducted.
Whoa, Gabriel, your body was in control. Gavin, your body was cool. No. Dylan, your body was cool too. Oh my goodness. And hold on, I saw, oh, I'm sorry. I saw Coco. You had big smiles the whole time.
That group was of 4 and 5-year-olds who never received behavioral intervention. Sadly enough, they were all diagnosed with autism, never received behavioral intervention. And Jeremy's incorporating a lot of goals, smiling, having fun, staying with the group, body in control, but doing it in a very natural way of engagement, and the kids love it. So when I hear ABA is abusive or ABA is bad, it's like I show that video. This is the ABA I know. This is the ABA I see every day. And I believe this results in meaningful outcomes. I know it results in meaningful outcomes. And I believe that kids love it. Kids are excited to be there. I'm going to show you another video that we call fruit salad.
You're going to be watermelon. And you're going to be watermelon. You're going to be... That's not a fruit. I like it. You're watermelon. You're going to be a mango. And you're going to be a mango. All right, let's see. Like mangoes. Good thinking, Judah. Watermelon. Mangoes. Go back and sit down. There you go. Cherries. No. Bananas. No. Strawberries. No. Watermelon. Good job. Mangoes. Watermelon. Mangoes. Watermelon. Fruit salad.
So many skills that Christine is working on. Conditional instructions for the girl not being overly bossy, which she still said no, but still working on what she used to have done on her assertiveness level. Working on conditional instructions, working on identification of fruit, peer tolerance. I mean, there's so many things that we're doing in a much more fun way. To me, this is what quality ABA looks like. The last thing I want to leave you with is meaningful curriculum. I think it's important that we have absolutely meaningful curriculum. We do not use a cookbook. Now, my wife and I had like a little bit of a discussion today of who gets what office. If I was down in my downstairs office, you would see a bunch of books in the background. And what you would see with these books is that I have a ton of curriculum books. I'm taking from all different types of behavior analytic curriculum books, not just one. Also, we don't just only use one assessment. We're not just using the VB map or the ABLES. We have a battery of assessments that help guide our curriculum and what we're going to teach the kids. And really importantly is we think outside the box. Fruit salad and the boogie walk were things that Christine and Jeremy came up with. It's not that we found and said, oh, on this curriculum book, this is an activity that you want to do. We encourage our staff to probe and trial different programs so that we can really find out what's going to be effective for our learners, what's going to be fun, and what's going to result in the learner learning different behaviors. There are areas that we concentrate on. One for us is learning how to learn skills. Learning how to learn skills are those skills which are pivotal so that the learner becomes better at the art of learning, that they become better at understanding the learning process. And regardless of age, these are skills that we want to target to make sure our learners have. There's things like sitting, waiting, attending, observational learning, giving back reinforcers. So often I think our kids are upset when they give reinforcers because they don't know when they're getting them back. They give them to the therapist and they think it's gone forever. So we're going to train our students that, you know, you give over your reinforcer, you're going to get it back. That it's not gone forever. Not fidgeting, remaining calm, how to handle feedback, taking deep breaths, saying, okay, going with the flow, paying attention, responding to instructions, and learning from feedback. These are some of the skills that we really work on. I'm going to show you some videos of learning how to learn. Here is one of the videos on environmental awareness with a kid who was bumping into everyone in their environment and everything in the environment. And so this is a way that we taught it.
This way.
So as you can see, he was really close there, but we were working on creative ways for him how to navigate the environment and making challenges for him. And he loved these challenges. He loved to try to do this instead of just like saying, stop bumping into it or that kind of thing. We were actually working on. Another area that we work heavily on is social skills and thinking that social skills are vitally important. I'll show one quick video of how we work on peer tolerance to each other early on.
Huck and Elle, you guys are going to be partners. Elle, who's your partner?
Huck.
Huck, nice. And Ryan and Brayden are partners. So when the music stops, what do you need to do?
Find a partner.
Find your partner. What do you need to do, Ryan, when the music stops?
Find a partner.
Find your partner. When the music's playing, what should you be doing?
Dancing. Running.
Dancing and running around.
Where the watermelons grow, I cannot go. Only if I do, I might say. Did you ever see?
Good job, everyone found their partner. Let's see, shoulder to shoulder. Nice. Knee to knee.
Oh, to knee.
Silly, huh? Ear to ear.
Seeing a
Nice.
moose down by the bay, down by the bay.
Wow, found your partners back to back.
Back to back. Back to back.
Whoop, careful. Oh, there you go. Elbow to elbow.
Elbow.
Foot to foot.
Foot to foot.
Nice. Ogden's
Hill
doing
with
it.
a polka dot tail, down by the bay, down by the bay. You ever see a flock?
Nice. Let's see, hands to hands. Nice. Going. Back to back.
Back to back.
Nice. Fingers to fingers. Wow. Okay, before the music starts again, this time you can find any partner you want. So, Elle, do you have to be partners with Huck?
No.
No. Ryan, do you have to be partners with Braden?
No.
No, just find whoever's closest.
Wearing a tie down by the
Wow, nice dancing, Braden and Elle. Good job. Oh, you guys found different partners? Awesome. Let's see. Knee to knee.
Knee to knee. Knee to knee.
Nice, listen. Ear to ear.
Oops.
Nice. Let's see. Hands to hands.
My mother would say,
Nice. High five to high five. Nice. Giving high fives over there. Hugs to hugs. Nice. Low five to low five. Low five.
Low five to low five.
Nice going. Oh my goodness, you guys are doing so great. I think we need another starfish high five in here. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Starfish! Nice job.
So hopefully what you're seeing is dynamic programming. Hopefully what you're seeing is fun, exciting. And for me, the best way to promote ABA and good ABA is to show audiences like this what it looks like, what it can be. Now, I've showed a lot of videos, obviously, of younger kids. I don't show videos of adolescents for consent reasons, really. And so that's the reason not, but it's the same principles. We do the same kind of stuff when we have adolescents in our centers. When we have adults, we try to make it fun. We try to make it engaging. The other thing that I need to say is that the reason why we're able to do flexibility, why we're able to have clinical judgment, is because our staff are well trained. It is not just 40 hours of training. We spend a long time training staff to make those judgments, to make those decisions, because we know that it is critical to the success of our learners. We don't want to put people who are not trained in situations where they could result in poor learning or possibly harm. We, on average, I think we spend 2 or 3 months on training our staff. Now, from a business owner standpoint, that's a lot of money up front. Our clinical data suggests a 95% retention rate over 5 years. We're not losing staff because they're invested in the quality that they're doing. And so I can give a whole other hour talk on staff training and what we're looking for and how we train. But it is critical that you have well-trained staff. And in situations where you don't have access to that kind of training, kind of like when I work in school districts, you're just shaping over time. Over time, you're giving them just a little bit more of that they can use their clinical judgment on, what they can use their flexibility on until they're, masterful behavior analysts. And I want to conclude what we see with this, what we've seen in our centers, which are not just in the United States, they're in the UK, they're in Hong Kong, they're in mainland China, they're in Singapore, they've been in Israel, they're in Kuwait, is our learners have tremendous, they're happy, they have joy in their lives, they're living meaningful, productive lives from their value system. They are just excelling and thriving. And so for me, yes, I call it progressive ABA. Yes, it differentiates from other ABA. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that there's good ABA, quality ABA, and we have to recognize that not all ABA is alike, and this is different, and this is what we should be promoting. So once again, I want to thank Carola for having me and inviting me to speak. I hope this is interesting for the audience. I will take time for questions, but that's what I have.
Well, thanks a million, Justin. That was just fabulous. I think some of the comments in the comment box were just alive with just enjoying this. We have, and this great presentation has come comments. We have a couple of questions if you have still got a moment. One was earlier on when you were talking about the flexible prompt fading. In reality, do the therapists have the knowledge and confidence to do this accurately? Because Sophia was saying, I can see many I've worked with who would not be able to do it at that level. And I think to some extent you've answered it with the training comment that you made there at the end, but maybe you want to speak to it a little bit more.
Yeah, in the beginning, no, they're not able to do it well. I tell this to my graduate students too, my doctoral students. You're not going to be good at writing. You're not going to be good at running research. You need to get practice at that. And so in the beginning, no, they don't do it well. And that's where I'm only giving them a little flexibility. I'm shaping it over time. But once again, I think it's critical that you train them. And so when you're in a training session, if it was you, Carola, and I'm sure you're a masterful prompter, it would be, why did you do that? What are you going to do next? And it's a lot of dialogue, and a lot of it's not after the fact. Our therapists are used to me sitting right here and you sitting right there and constantly talking about your decision making and fine tuning it. And the other thing we say is there's very little mistakes that a therapist can make that are going to be detrimental. We have supervisors there, and like if they're missing prompting, we can come in really quickly and correct things.
I think that's really important. I mean, good staff training is the key to all the things you were saying, and having that quality. I think to some extent, because there's such a need for behavior analysts, that sometimes the training does go down the drains a little bit because it's just too many people trained too quickly and the time is not spent. One of the questions here, Mickey is asking about the message of good ABA gets lost in politics because, as we've discussed earlier, the terminology is really important because sometimes people make up terms and procedures and then sell that as something completely different from ABA. So there is a worry that when you're talking about progressive ABA, that people misunderstand that as being something other than ABA. I know that you've alluded to that at the beginning of the talk, but do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah. I was trying to read Mickey's comment. It was just too long for me to read.
Yeah, but I'll send it to you after.
It's hard for me because I want to call it quality, and I want to really discriminate quality versus not quality.
Yeah.
I found the problem is that when I go that route in talks, people tune me out right away. And so I have to do a little carefulness about that. In terms of how I'm presenting it, and so for me it is good ABA. I understand the politics of it. You know, it's tough. The reason we created the certification was our unhappiness with other certifications out there in terms of the standards, and so you need a name for a certification and increasing standards. I get the politics. It's a tough one for me. I think, for me, at the end of the day, we give a lot of stuff away for free. So we're not selling. If for anyone in the audience, we give an RBT training away for free. Over 200,000 people have signed up. It's cost us a lot of money, actually, because we have to pay for the hosting of it. We're trying not to we're not making money off this. Like, it's not like a product. That we're making a ton, and any money we make actually goes back into research.
I don't think people are worried about you personally. Mickey wouldn't be part of. I think after this talk, it's very, very clear that it's not an attack on you personally. It's just that the branding of something, and then because you're clearly talking about ABA and just trying to bring the quality of the practice up.
I think it goes to an audience control issue and who you have an audience. I want to say as much, this is what good ABA, this is what you should be doing. Yeah. And I think more than ever right now, it's important to highlight this is what ABA is. This is the ABA I've grown up in from when I was young, and highlighting that there's good ABA and recognizing there's bad ABA and discriminating that. And I'd rather just call it ABA. I'd rather just call it good ABA. I wish that the editor would have let me put good hallmarks of quality ABA as the original title.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like when you go back to the definition of ABA, ABA is applying the procedures to increase socially important behaviors. And when that gets lost, then we should not be calling it ABA. That's because it just isn't the definition. And strictly speaking, it's not ABA. If it's not good ABA, it's not ABA. But I realize that it does happen.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't consider it ABA. The problem is the consumer considers it ABA at this point.
Yeah.
And at least in the States, insurance considers it ABA.
And it's sold as ABA as well, which is a problem. It is sold by some people as ABA.
I like that question. I can see them now. Do you mind me answering one of them, Carola?
What's that?
Do you mind me answering? I saw in the chat a question.
Yeah, in the chat, somebody's saying, do you think that autistics would be much more accepting of this kind of ABA that you're talking about, rather than the original ABA? That's the problem. This is where the distinction comes through, and that's really there shouldn't be a distinction. You're saying people should practice good ABA. Yeah. There shouldn't be anything else. Yeah, that is ABA. Good ABA is really ABA.
You know, an experiment I want to do to answer. I don't know, Roberta, if autistics would be more accepting. I know the consumers that we've had, they are strong advocates for what they've received. They don't like everything, but they are strong advocates. That last video I showed you of Jeremy with the peer reinforcement development and high five, elbow to elbow, knee to knee. I would love to show that. I would love someone, not me, to show that and say, this is just a video from a preschool, and see what people think. Because my guess is that everyone would be accepting of it. I think everyone would say, yeah, that's just good teaching. That's just fun. And Jeremy's systematic as can be. He has goals. He has ideas in mind. And my guess is if you show this, and I agree, if you just say this is what ABA is, that would be more accepting. I know in terms of myself and some colleagues are working on a website where we're not calling progressive ABA. We're just calling it ABA, and we're going to have video examples of this kind of stuff without even companies. So like, obviously my company has this video. We'll take out anything that identifies the company and just put it in there and say, this is what ABA should be. This is what it should be. And I would love to also get away from the words good, bad, quality, not. I would love to just say, this is ABA. But unfortunately, when I've said that, I mean, Nikki's comments and your comments really make me reflect as I'm talking. When I say that too often, I go to places and people say, yeah, this is ABA, and they don't do anything that I've talked about. I've seen them, and they're not doing anything, and they're like, yeah, we do the same ABA. It's like, no, you don't.
No. And I think you're completely right, and it's really refreshing to see the comments, and we'll be sharing your talk, and we'll have you back again, I'm sure. But because I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot before was actually getting what you're talking about, the video, the website, getting a book or a website or examples so that people can actually pick up on these things, because your staff are so well trained, they come up with really good ideas, which is brilliant. But maybe other people need a few prompts to come up with their own ideas, and also the confidence to be allowed to come up with your own ideas. I mean, we've worked with a mother who came up with amazing games because she knew her child really well. She knew the target behavior. She'd learned about reinforcement and how to apply it and how to make it contingent and all of those things. And then she came up with games just similar to what you were talking about, different games, but the similar idea. And just by giving her that freedom and saying to her, come up with your own games, come up with your own ideas. And, she came up with some real clever stuff. It would be good to collate all of that in a place where you can actually say, here are some really good examples.
I love that. And I also love Van's comment. Yes, I do think that we need to be culturally valid too. And I think, I think you'll see the hallmarks of what I've been talking about in all our offices, but there's cultural differences. When I go to, or when I used to go pre-COVID, when I used to go to Hong Kong, or when I used to go to the UK office or the Australia office or the Kuwait office, you're going to see cultural variables as there should be. The tenets are still always there, but we change curriculum, we change goals, we change how we implement based on cultural factors. That's critical. That's a critical component. And Van, I think it's a beautiful point. I should put it in as one of the tenets of my progressive ABA talk.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. There's another question coming. I didn't see that earlier. Would the question Mickey is asking here? Would Don Bear be deserving of an honorary certificate? I ask this because certification may sound like a good idea, but it can also discriminate against those who already do good ABA. That's one of the questions. You know, whenever you go to those branded project things where you then have to buy extra when you're already a really good behavior analyst, then you still have to pay for extra certifications. And the idea would Don Bear an example of an excellent behavior analyst? Would he have to get another certificate?
Well, there's two ways to answer it. There's one, in the States, we need accreditation for certificate. So it's recognized by insurance company and licensure law. So I don't know what the accreditation rules would be. I have a lawyer and consultant who tells me what I can and can't do. But yes, I think Don Bear would get this. I do think Jim Sherman, who is my mentor, who was Don Bear's student, would get this. I think, you know, I have variations of it. I show all of this in some presentations. I show like our founding parents and say, these are it's what they did. It's nothing different than what they did because they did ABA. I think they would get these certificates. Now, whether I can give one or not, that's by accreditation standards, because in the States, it's so important that it's accredited so that it can help insurance reimbursement. And so people can do it. So there's other reasons for it. Why I have rules that even I can't stand.
Yeah, and some of those reasons wouldn't apply elsewhere because there is no insurance cover.
Yeah.
That's a US thing.
Yeah.
Emily was wondering just further, not just about the RBT course. There were a couple of times people were asking, where can we find this RBT course that you were mentioning?
Yeah,
you've already mentioned that. This is
where I'm a horrible marketer. You would because I'm not marketing. I think it's autismpartnershipfoundation.org. I could be wrong. If you Google Autism Partnership Foundation, it comes up as one of the links, and it's that. The other thing I want to say that we do offer as well is we offer a free 8-hour supervision training. So if someone gets their BCBA, they can go get 8 hours free. Not from me, from Christine, who you saw do the fruit salad game. She does an 8-hour training that counts for your supervision, 8 hours that you need for the BACB. Or if you just want 8 hours of supervision training, it counts there. It's another thing we do for free. It's not as big, like we have 3,000 people compared to 200,000, but we're trying to give resources back to the community as best we can.
Which is really nice, and you're finishing on that note, because this is exactly the kind of ethos that we have at the Center for Behavior Analysis, is trying to get resources back to the community, also trying to get reinforcers for behavior analysts who are doing really good work. That's why we create free CEUs as well, like the webinar, giving people a free, and I think it's, there's somebody saying the course, she did the course with you and it was amazing, and thank you, Dr. Justin, and your staff. So it's wonderful, and I think it's nice to get together with people who have similar attitude or similar approach and ethos to behavior analysis, because the science is free. The good science is like should be free. Obviously, service provision has to be paid for, but to share the good science when you can is just wonderful. So it remains for me to just thank you so much, Justin. That was really, really a great talk, and we'll definitely have you back, and I look forward to seeing you in person at some point when we all get back into circulation again.
Well, thank you. And if anyone wants to reach out, I'm just going to put my email address in there. You can contact me personally. I will share articles. I will give you anything I can. So I'm just trying to help the field and help our clients. Thank you so much for.
Thanks very much, and have a nice day.
Yeah, have a great evening.
Okay, you too. Right. Bye now.
Bye.